After a roller coaster ride, the current indirect tax system, the goods and services tax, has now completed 5 years of implementation. The regime that was introduced with the motto of one nation, one tax, nearly subsumed a whole lot of taxes and cesses within itself of central and states on the sale of goods and services. And the objective of the entire GST system was to simplify the indirect tax regime in the country. Now, how have things really changed for the economy at large and for the common man, for you and me in these 5 years? That's going to be the focus of our discussion today. Joining in is a very special guest with me, Gunjan Prabhakaran, partner and leader, Indirect Tax, BDO India, joins right in. Gunjan, welcome to Business Today TV. Great to have you with us. Help us with your first take on 5 years of GST. What are the hits and misses that you've seen and noticed?
I think it has been a magical journey. GST, what we have achieved in 5 years is nothing less than magical because, yes, there are a lot of issues. Industry is struggling on quite a few counts. But to reach here, it is something amazing. It's monumental to have a tax reform of that scale and size and to make it applicable across India is truly amazing. And in terms of misses, the list is very long, but I guess in the course of the discussion, we'll be touching upon on some of those points.
Absolutely. Now, I wanted to first ask you on a broader macro perspective, has GST achieved what it set out to do? I mean, like, has the tax base increased? Has the tax compliance increased? Are more people using GST? More people filing GST? More businesses have become more transparent? Help us with your take there.
Yeah, so definitely GST, as you rightly pointed out, the core intention was to unify the taxes. There should be one nation, one tax, and clearly they have achieved that. As you are aware, there were multiple taxes. Bringing all those or subsuming all those taxes under one tax was not an easy task. That definitely has happened. But somewhere in the implementation of law, probably we are not yet there. There are a lot of compliances that companies are required to undertake, and the multiplicity of compliance is probably one of those misses that we need to work on. And we need to see how we can bring in simplification to achieve that. On the revenue front, definitely the tax revenue has been buoyant and the collections have been fantastic for the revenue authorities. But again, a lot can be attributed to the tax leakages that have been we have been able to plug, and also the curve on tax evasion. So really some of those factors that are attributing to a more cogent tax regime.
Right. Now, I also wanted to understand for small and medium businesses, the SMEs, the MSMEs, has GST made it easier to do business today, doing away with these multiple taxes? Has it made it simpler for businessmen to now do business with GST in implementation?
On the ground, to be honest, after assisting so many clients, it's not easy for them at all. And somebody who has not been used to undertaking compliances or more importantly, the cost implication. Nobody, especially the MSMEs, it's something very significant, for them to go to a consultant and spend lakhs to just do compliances is not something that they can fathom. And that is one major shift that is required in the long term, but I think we are far from it.
Right. But what are the key challenges? Since you've been working with so many people on ground, you really know a day-to-day challenge being faced by them. What are the key challenges, even 5 years on, the traders, businessmen, industry, all the stakeholders they're facing right now?
Yeah, Sakshi, I'll tell you the most important challenge, and this got nothing to do with how the law is structured. The most important challenge is technology. Small businesses, they are not yet using sophisticated ERPs. Some of them, they are not even using technology, who were probably on manual, modes of undertaking all their compliances. Now, for them, it is a drastic shift moving from manual mode to technology. Now, while they have somehow, scrambled to do it either on their own or for, support from service providers, but in addition to the cost implication, it's a huge mind shift for them. It's not easy. And for them to move to an ERP, get a team who can drive their finance function. And the other thing that will resonate with the MSMEs is that it's not just the use of technology, but also the fact that indirect tax function truly never held a lot of importance in a finance function.
Yeah.
It has always been, corporate tax and indirect tax. So that is one of the fundamental practical challenges that companies, it took a lot of time for them to realize that if I don't do this compliance right, I'll not be able to get my payments from the customers. So that being a change for them to really live with is a really huge challenge.
Right. Also, I still believe there are so many stories that keep coming in front of us that talk about that so-and-so industry is still facing issues with that input credit being phased off. Help us understand, is the government in sync with this? What should be the right way to now approach this space?
I think where government needs to seriously look at is, while we completely agree there is a need to curb tax evasion, okay, and definitely government doesn't want a customer to enjoy the credit of taxes paid unless it really gets deposited into the tax coffers. But the problem is we are penalizing a compliant person for the non-compliance of a supplier or a vendor, right? And in addition to that, the input tax credit conditions are extremely onerous, which are making the fundamental objective of goods and services tax very lame. Because any country, wherever VAT has been adopted, the key objective is that the credit should be available seamlessly. And by placing, and at this point of time, more than 10 plus restrictions and the compliance that you need to undertake to ensure that you are able to take that credit, it's way too onerous. And unless we simplify that, and we are hoping that at least this gets picked up in one of the recent, the upcoming GST Council meetings. But I think this is one of the core fundamental issues which should have been rectified a couple of years ago.
So that's a big shortcoming. What other shortcomings that you have seen so far in GST that it has still not been able to resolve?
Since we have completed 5 years, the biggest challenge is now companies are facing a lot of litigation, right? And we don't have a GST tribunal. And we need an apex advanced ruling authority so that the ocean of contrary advanced rulings that we get on the same issue, that they need to be dealt with. And multiplicity of judicial proceedings. We have different authorities reaching out to clients. And in fact, it has reached another level now. Even they reach out to consultants for seeking information for the compliances undertaken by our clients. So clearly, there is a lot of scrutiny. Scrutiny is good. But at the same time, we need to give breathing space to the assessee. Unless the law stabilizes, there is certainty. We need to see, are we being reasonable in questioning the assessees? So the delicate balance between trying to curb tax evasion and prevent tax leakages, let's not really, make things onerous for a assessee who is already compliant.
Absolutely. Understood that. And that point is very well taken. Hope the government really listens to that, because in the implementation of a greater good, you should not be, penalizing those who have been really trying, and there have been challenges and that they want to overcome right now. Now, you've largely covered the macro perspective, how the economy has been benefiting so far, the issues that still remain unresolved. For everyday users, common people, how have things changed post GST? The only bottom line that they simplify, I know it's a very complicated subject, but to simplify it to them, help us understand, has GST made us pay more taxes for the things that we've been consuming so far before GST, or has it made it easier on our pocket?
If you will really look at it from a common man's point of view, everything has become more expensive, right? Because there are multiple challenges, right? There are multiple reasons for it. Because again, we have introduced so many credit restrictions that in order for that benefit to pass on to the end customer, it's an entire supply chain. And unless we have a perfect supply chain, the benefits will not get passed on to the end customer. You think about a cab that you take, you think about the food that gets delivered online, or medicines or anything. The kind of restrictions and also the kind of difficulties that we have brought in the availment of credit, you will see will be the root cause of all the fact that we are paying more today. Because the moment you block credit, the prices of the products go up because the vendor, the supplier is not able to absorb those costs. And in those cases, they have been able to, in majority of cases, the benefits are not getting passed on to the customers.
So I think that's the big pain point the government really needs to understand, because it's not just a community of traders, businessmen, industry which is facing the challenges, but it's coming down to the end consumer, the common man. So the government really needs to think that way to reform whatever is needed at this point in time and resolve the issues that are currently remaining. We used to hear a lot about when GST was initially implemented, that sooner or later the slabs will get reduced, they will be simplified further, because even now we're paying so many different taxes, and after every meeting, like even I think yesterday, we've seen some 24 commodities seen bigger, a spike of about from 5% or 12% to direct 18%. It's a big spike that we are seeing on an everyday use as well. So how does one really come to, used to as every time it'll be changing again. So it'll be very difficult for us and common men to really, evolve and change accordingly as well.
Thanks, Sakshi, for raising that, because especially in view of the GST Council meeting that just happened, rate rationalization is really required. Obviously, it is bringing in a lot of uncertainty. And it's not as simple as saying that today you are at 5%, tomorrow you'll be 12. Today you're at 12, you'll become 18. It entails a lot for a company. You have to ensure that, your ERP changes are triggered. You have to ensure your vendors and your customers, everybody is intimated. It has an implication on how you have, arrived at your cost. So many implications. Now, as you rightly said, clearly there was a hope that the number of rates will come down, right?
Yes.
Now, but we are very far away from that stage, because clearly the hope is that there should be 3 rates in the near future. As of now, we still continue to have 5. We should have 3. 3 will probably come down to 2 and then 1. We are very far away from it, because this very step, and it is a step in the right direction, unless we fix the inverted duty structure issue, because of which this whole rate rationalization activity is being undertaken, and also, of course, towards ensuring that we have lesser number of rates. But the first priority before the council and the government is to ensure that the inverted duty structure issue is resolved. And that's the reason why you are seeing that some products where the prices were 5% or some services where the rates have been increased, it is being done to ensure that at least there are no more huge credit losses that have been occasioning to the companies. So clearly there is a need, and to answer your question specifically, we are hoping that there will be only one single rate at some point of time, but not in the near future for sure.
Absolutely not in the near future, but sooner or later, we will hope that rate rationalization is taking place, and then there are fewer rates that we have to deal with. So things get simplified for the common man too. We also know the issue of states versus center on GST. Where are we at on that issue, and what can we expect going forward?
So I think you're talking about the compensation cess that needs to be, and clearly the states had, I think even in the GST Council meeting, it has been taken up. And the hope and the expectation was that the states will be, the support can be extended for a couple of years more. Doesn't look like that the government is really keen on extending that support, and obviously the loans that have been taken needs to be repaid. Sure. But the extension of compensation cess is definitely going to affect the companies, the industry, who are already under the net of compensation cess. So it is a little onerous for those companies, but I guess it's required for the government at this point of time. We only hope, given the pandemic situation, the states really have struggled. If at all there is an extension of a couple of more years, it will really support the states in their, efforts.
Okay. And in the end, I just wanted to understand, for the larger understanding of our viewers, 5 years on, what are the experiences that could definitely serve as the guidance for the future of GST for us to really understand which way are we really going and what can we expect?
I think the most amazing thing that GST has done for India at large, for India Inc., is introduction of technology. to the business world, which was not there as a uniform practice. And really, thanks to e-invoicing implementation, that everybody, like even me as a tax consultant personally, we never thought, we could talk about technology. But e-invoicing really broadened our approach to looking at a tax function in an automated environment. And really, in future, for India to reach where it aspires to reach, it is important that technology forms the foundation of any tax initiative that we take.
Okay.
But clearly, we are moving in the right direction, and GST can be the foundation. But what is required, if you would ask me, is we need to split our efforts into two. And the discussions that are ongoing through various GST Council meetings, we need to first segregate and see what are the foundation issues. And once we club, like the input tax credit restrictions, these are some foundation issues, fundamental issues. First, we need to look into the fundamental issues, rectify them, and then move on to the procedural issues or the specific asks of the industry. Because if we try and address procedural first and then go back and try and change the fundamental issues, it's all going to be way too complicated for an assessee to deal with and to absorb such changes, frequent changes in the law.
Sure,
so we are
absolutely.
definitely headed in the right direction, but a lot of effort is required, and more collaboration between industry and government authorities can help us resolve that.
Okay, understood that. Well, thanks to you, Gunjan, for speaking to us and sharing with us all these insights about this complicated topic, GST, simplifying it to larger extent. We know there have been some hits, but a whole lot of shortcomings that still need to be resolved. We hope that the several council meetings that are coming about now will be able to address some of these fundamental and procedural issues, both that you've just talked about. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sakshi. Thank you for having me over.